Yeah, so today, live review of the Laphroaig quarter cask Isla single malt Scotch whiskey. This is a Suntory Global Spirits product. Um, 48% alcohol, 96 proof, non-chill filtered, but it does have color added. Um, it is 5 to 11 years in first fill ex-bourbon Maker's Mark casks. So they get their casks from Maker's Mark now. They say it's all Maker's Mark. It is within the same company, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some like Jim Beam ones in there or whatever. Like they'll take whatever bourbon barrels they can get, but they say it's Maker's Mark. Um, and then so after 5 to 11 years in first fill Maker's Mark, they do 7 to 12 months finished in first fill ex bourbon quarter casks. So again, that's not a quarter barrel, that is a quarter sherry butt, or about half the size of a hogshead, um, roughly. So it's like 125 liters, which is half a hogshead. Um, so that's on the docket for today, and of course that's a smoky one. All reviews aboard say Laphroaig Quarter is one of the best. Um, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is still like it's not their lowest bottom offering, but it is like a medium mid range offering, right? Like it's not going to be like wild in any way, right? It's not anything special really, but it is a quarter cask offering, which I've come to like these quarter cask whiskeys. Like what else? What's the other one? The Iran quarter cask, the Bothy. I liked that one a lot too. Um, and I think it's just you have to be careful with the quarter barrel because it is going to like really kind of rapid age things a little bit. But it's also kind of like, in some ways, if you do it right, it's kind of like cheating scotch a little bit, right? Because you get more impact with less age um, because you're using a smaller barrel. Um, but and again, these guys also use the quarter in the lore, um, and also in some of the other stuff too, like the Carchus PX, the Carchus uh, 10 Cask Favorites 2024. They have it in that one too. I think did they have it in the triple wood Laphroaig triple wood? Maybe not. I can't even remember what like release that is off the top of my head. Laphroaig triple wood. Um, God. Yeah, the triple wood. Um, I don't know when they last released the triple wood, but it is ex bourbon and then quarter casks and then Oloroso sherry. So triple wood is kind of like this one, then finished in sherry, rather than like the 10 sherry oak, which is like the 10 finished in sherry. So it's like similar to like the 10 sherry, I suppose. Um, we're still jury's out on that 10 sherry. The neck pour, I don't know. I don't know, man. It wasn't my favorite. So we'll see how things progress with that bottle. I'm not sure it worked. That 10 Laphroaig 10 Oloroso sherry finished. So we'll see. See what happens. It seems a little dry. That didn't pop like I wanted it to. All right, so again, 25 points for aroma, 25 points for palate, 25 for finish, 10 for texture, and 15 for my personal overall experience. And again, this is like one of the bottles that we don't like to use the term daily drinker, but like kind of like casual sipper, we'll say, that I tend to go to because it's not terribly expensive, but it's still pretty high quality, still tastes pretty good. Um, my spinner's not up here. So we'll give that a minute to rest there. I tried to like take some stuff off of here, but it's almost like it's like less cluttered when I'm doing other things, but yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass to. Also, the cat's been knocking over these few bottles, and there's only a few. Might have to fill that up with bottles again. Oh, come on, you piece of shit. This cord's just like too short. Failure, not prepared. Alright, that's there for now. This probably has like a friggin' book report on this whiskey, but well, maybe not this whiskey, but this distillery. So we'll just try to find something, a little bit of something to read. I really, if I knew what whiskey I was doing ahead of time, I could like bookmark the page, but Isla Ardbeg. Some news about Ardbeg coming on Monday. Stay tuned to my community news channel. Oh, the Black Bamor. That's an interesting one. It's interesting that they chose that bottle for the Bamor picture. The Black Bamor series. That's a one that unfortunately I don't know how many of those actually get drunk because people use them as an investment vehicle. Sad. So these have this is the old quarter cask bottle. This is the new one here. And this is like their new packaging, this thing, where they kind of just have it like kind of plain with this like stripe kind of denoting what the I don't know. That's like the only like differentiating marker is this like stripe down here. I personally don't like the new packaging. I kind of prefer this one, honestly. But that's just my opinion. Like the new lore is not white on forest green. It's just like all the rest of them, white with some gray on it. It's like not. Anyway, what's the margin note here? Fine malt friends. In 1994, Laphroaig devised a marketing innovation in the shape of the Friends of Laphroaig, which now boasts around 500,000 members worldwide. I'm a member. Each friend is given a lifetime's lease on a tiny portion of land at the distillery, and the annual rent takes the form of a dram of Laphroaig. Yeah, do I still have one of those things? They don't do this anymore, but they used to come with like these little booklets that like had like had like a little number in them. Here it is. It says like here's your number to go get your plot of land. But now it's like I think the cartridge I bought is like right on the like bottle or something. Yeah, they used to come with these little booklets. And basically it's just you get like points. You like put this in here and you get points. It's like a point system, man. It's just like in fucking air miles or anything. The scheme, oh, I like how they call it a scheme. The scheme commemorates the Johnson brothers' struggle after founding the distillery at the beginning of the 19th century to secure the distillery's water supply. The brothers eventually purchased the land that the water flows through. In addition, the distillery offers a number of varied visitor experiences, including the Hunter's Hike, during which participants enjoy a dram with a distillery water source, cut peat, and then return to the distillery to tend the barley on the malting floor. You know, I'm sure that's a great experience. As much as, I'm not sure I want to actually do work. Sounds like work. For the real alcoholics. Hey, I have lots of Laphroaig points. I'm a friend. Unfortunately, I couldn't spend them on anything because they can't ship alcohol to Canada, but apparently, like, pens and glasses also count. They could ship me a lanyard, though. I don't really have a use for that, but I could get a lanyard or like a pen. Either way. Either way. So this is not natural. This is color added. There is... Everyone stop what you're doing. There is some Laphroaigs that are natural color, but I think most of the like generic, well, not generic, but like core range ones do have some amount of color editing going on. So this is not natural, and I think the 10 is not natural either. I think that's true to say. And I'm actually surprised that that Carchus, that 2024 Carchus, is natural color, because it's really dark. But, you know, something E150, it's normal, it is what it is. It is what it is. So this one's going to be like way less smoky than like a pour that's like further up the bottle. But that's okay. There's still that smoke character to it. There's still some of that like medicinal iodine character. You still get a little bit of that like bacony protein thing. But the like fruity kind of characteristics that normally are like really hidden at the bottom of the smoke are like way more at the top. So right now I'm getting like a cherry note, a little bit of woodiness. And again, these were ex-bourbon matured, but also ex-bourbon, first of all, ex-bourbon quarter casks. I'm assuming they were recoopered from normal American barrels. So it's going to have a lot of the like ex-bourbon character kind of really ramped up. That sweetness, that vanilla sort of thing. There's a little bit of orchard fruit in there too. We'll say like orchard fruit, cherry, all the smoke notes like smoke, iodine, bacon. I'm getting something right now that's like I would describe as wintergreen. It's like a sweet, minty grassiness. But yeah, like wintergreen in there. That's a good start. Some good leggage here. And on the palate. Sludge. Oh. I don't know how the peat profile of this distillery just lands right every time. On the palate initially, you get that little bit of smoky character. You get a little bit of that like iodine medicinal character. You get some of those fruity notes though. Some like what's that, orchard fruit kind of notes, kind of layered in with that like iodine smoky character. But then like when you get into the back palate, it kind of like roars in with that like campfire note, a little bit of that like medicinal qualities in there, a little bit earthy. It's like somewhere in that mid palate, back palate area, you just get like a really solid campfire essence. Really well integrated. With the fruit components. Now, usually, like when these bottles, I find when they get these like kind of low like this, you start to get more of the like brown sugar, butterscotchy kind of like real sweetness come out. See if like that really presents good. Yeah, some of that like brown sugar is like kind of popping a little bit. I feel like I don't expect butterscotch notes from a scotch. Yeah, it's pretty rare. This one's not really giving me butterscotch right now. You might be more likely to get them on like something that is new oak barrel, like a virgin oak. Or if you had, I guess the thing is, when we talk about scotch, usually we talk about blended scotch, or not blended scotch, single malt scotch. But if you have a blended scotch, in theory, they could use corn. Like blended scotch could be. There's no reason, technically, there's no reason why you couldn't take a mash bill that is a bourbon mash bill and then mature it in a new oak barrel in Scotland. It's going to come out a lot like bourbon, but it's scotch. There's actually no reason why they couldn't do that. They just don't do that. It'll take a lot longer for you to get the barrel notes because it's not as hot there. But in theory, they could do that. They could use a virgin oak barrel and just call it blended scotch, but or grain scotch. They could call it single grain scotch. That's a thing. Scotch doesn't have to be single malt. It's just that's what we like. Hi, you want some of this? No. Don't know what swish barrels are? Typically, when they talk about swish, that's when they dump the barrel out and they put a bunch of water into it and then swish it around.
So, for some reason, old CBC article about people in Newfoundland would buy, I think it was rum barrels, And then, because they don't use the barrel again, and then they would just put water in it, and the guy was like, it was from like 1970 something, and the guy's like, you put water in it, and you keep it there for like 3 weeks, and you get rum.
You don't really get rum. You get like the remains
Because it
of
all
what.
comes out of the barrel.
Yeah, it comes out of the walls of the barrel. Yeah, I actually learned about that. I learned about that this morning. You must have read the same thing.
Okay, well, I thought I had something relevant to talk to you about.
Yeah. So
And by learned, I mean it was on TikTok.
it was on TikTok. Yeah, technically that's what they call a swish. Yeah, but that's actually a thing that's becoming more common. I don't know how prevalent it is, so I don't want to speak exactly like I know for sure. But if you've ever heard of the product Jim Beam Devil's Cut, friggin' newfies, yeah. Jim Beam Devil's Cut is basically what they do. Is that's what they do. They take the barrel after the Jim Beam's been bourbon has been dumped out of it. They just put some water in it and splash it around in the barrel, and then they use that water to cut the whiskey. So you end up with like more of the like barrel wall whiskey in the actual thing. And Jim Beam Devil's Cut, it tastes really, really like dry woody. And that's probably the reason. But there's actually a thing kind of like my understanding, I don't know 100% sure, but one of my understanding is like more and more bourbon producers, they're just doing that generally. They're just once their barrels are done, they can't use them again because they got to be new. So they just fill them full of water and then splash them around and then take that water and cut the whiskey because it has some alcohol in it. So they get more ABV out of um, each barrel. And it's a thing where like Scotch producers, where they want the ex bourbon barrels, are suffering a little bit because you can get an ex bourbon barrel that's first fill, but when it's been washed like that, it washes out a lot of what you would want the Scotch to absorb out of the barrel wall. So they end up getting these like really low quality first fill ex bourbon barrels that like don't really perform very well. So that's why, like again, we talk about Glenmorangie being very uh, controlling about the ex bourbon barrels that they get. They like get their own barrels and then they lease them for bourbon and they get them back to make sure they're high quality. Because a lot of these bourbon producers are washing barrels, and the Scotch actually suffers because they end up with these barrels that are not very high quality because they've been washed. I don't know how prolific it is exactly, but my understanding is it's becoming more and more and more common. And unfortunately, Scotch is what suffers in that transaction. Hi, you. So, like, I think more and more Scotch producers are being like very picky about what barrels they get, but at the same time, they can't be too picky about what barrels they get because, again, bourbon barrels are a commodity in Scotch. Excuse me, I would like to review this spirit. Can you not?
TikTok. Oh, husband.
Yeah, this is still pretty. It's. I mean, this is. It's still got all the things. It's still got the smokiness. It's still got some of the protein. It's still got, the iodine hospital kind of thing. But the nose is a little bit, orchard fruit, a little bit cherry, a little bit brown sugar, a little bit wood character, black pepper. That wintergreen thing is like not too predominant, like not too easy to get, but it's in there. Honestly, what it reminds me of, and depending on your experience with dip tobacco, you might not like this because some people find that stuff disgusting, but it's like wintergreen skull. That's actually what I get. And the only reason I know that is because I used to know a guy who used wintergreen skull before they banned it in Canada. um, Start of the finish, earthy. You get the campfire smoke, kind of like hickory, burning hickory smoke. Um, Not a whole lot else. So I think like the finish is like maybe the most lacking part so far. Um, Satisfying like smoky notes, um, but don't really get like the fruit or sweetness, at least not right now. It's kind of like all just Isla on the back end, earth and smoke, and we'll call the smoke like hickory smoked, earth and hickory smoke, and we'll say like burnt log. I guess we're gonna call that creosote. That's what we're starting to call that, creosote. Not the most complex finish. Not the longest finish. We'll call it medium. It's like maybe even medium minus. Let's write medium minus and see if I can prove myself wrong. Nose and palate though are pretty strong. There's a good complexity of flavors on the palate, well integrated. Um, Nose is pretty nice too, but finish is like I like the flavor of the finish, but the finish from we're rating this on intensity and complexity. Um, Not that interesting, not that long, and not that interesting. If anything, expected. A little bit of sweetness permeating there. The interesting thing, like I kind of like experienced a little bit, is like the sip I just took was like slightly bigger than I normally take, and it carried like a little bit more sweetness to it. I don't know, maybe it's just because that sip happened to have sweetness in it, but I think maybe if you have less liquid, it like tends to go towards the like smoky notes, and maybe you need a little bit more liquid to get some of that like sweet character, but I don't know for sure, and we won't say that for this time because it kind of just happened to be like that. But oh, there is a Newfie rum called Screech. How do they make Screech anyway? Now that we're just talking about Newfies being Newfies, where does Newfie Screech even come from? It's Jamaican rum. Oh, okay. Just so we're clear, Newfie Screech is Jamaican rum. It's watered down Jamaican rum. I wonder where it comes from. All right. I'm going to take one more sip, and then we're going to put some numbers in. 2 weekends ago, I wanted to put numbers on the screen, and I didn't get around to it. I'm going to try to do that this weekend, but I've said that before. Yeah, I can't say that this finishes really any longer than medium minus. It's pretty on the short end. What I like about this whiskey is it gives you a good amount of all the Laphroaig notes, and that's a little sweet. You get into that sweetness, especially at this bottle fill. But it's just not that complicated. And that's okay. Again, like Woodford Double Oaked is a delicious whiskey. It's not one I would rate very highly because it's not that interesting, but it's a delicious whiskey. We have to decide what our metrics are. Something can be delicious and not be that complicated. All right. At 25. We call the aroma. It's pretty good. It's a good combination of notes. I'm nose blind to a lot of them at this point. Nothing wild going on though. What are you doing? Don't chew on that. You got that smoke character. You got a little bit of that protein character. Some pepper in there. Wintergreen, cherry, brown sugar. Some bright like apple orchard fruit. They're all like pretty segregated notes though. They don't combine very well. I wouldn't even call the fruits grilled. They're very segregated from each other. They're very independent. I like 18. 18 out of 25. All right, on the palate. 25. some like simple syrup right on the attack, meld with like that smoky character. Into the mid palate, you get some like orchard fruit. We'll say like apple orchard fruit. And then that starts to combine with like the campfire note, kind of like moving through the mid palate campfire note, that like iodine note, that band-aid essence. Then it becomes earthy. Good, strong set of transition. You get some of that peat up front. You get some of that peat in the end. The fruit and sweet is like kind of in the middle. Give the palate 20 out of 25. And then we'll talk about the finish, which is probably the weakest part. And again, this is a, the average age of the whiskey in here, maybe like, around 10 years or maybe around, it could be even a little younger. Like the youngest whiskey in here is younger than 10 years. So they can't like put 10 years on it. But there's some that are a little older than 10. But as a whole, it's on the younger side. So the idea that, like, again, this anecdotal idea that the age and the length of finish are somehow related starts to, like, continue to make sense. But the finish on this one is, like, a little bit sweet, but mostly all in the, like, smoky, earthy realm. It's like earth, spice, campfire at first. Maybe the slightest whisper of barrel. A little bit of sweetness in there. Whisper tier. Doesn't last very long. It's like the bitter earthiness riding out at best. El Capitano, how's it going? The intensity of the notes that are there is pretty good. I do like them, but the finish isn't the greatest. I'm gonna call it 16. Busy AF for a Friday, kind of annoying. Yeah, I feel that. At least, you're probably like at least halfway through the day, right? The depressing part for me is I still got to go to work tonight into Saturday morning. That's not the greatest. It's 11 a.m. Oh, you're 2 hours behind me. Okay. I kind of figured it was about lunchtime for you. But I'm like way on the East Coast. I'm more east than Eastern time. All right, so let's talk about the texture, which I think to me is going to be like somewhere like a 5 or a 6. It's not particularly thick in any way. Yeah, it's fine. It's like, it's not watery, but It's not like really laying it on. I'll call it a 6 out of 10. So out of 15, my personal experience with this whiskey, this is a delicious whiskey. It's got all of the Laphroaig peat notes that you want. It's got some good sweet character, especially like lower on the fill level. You definitely get like more of the like kind of sweetnesses showing up. Kind of like, you might be surprised to say this, but honestly, like Laphroaig is one of the sweeter Isla whiskeys. It's just that that sweetness is like buried a lot of the time in the peat related notes. And it kind of really like shows itself when you have a bottle that's like a little low on the fill level and it's been around for a while. You really start to get some of those sweet characters come into the whiskey. And in that way, it's kind of like pretty pleasant to drink. Kind of like casually, if that makes any sense. It is still like a little high on the price, but we're not worried about price when we're rating things. We're just going to rate it right off how we feel about it. And then the valuation can take care of itself. So it's not doing anything wild. It's not doing anything crazy and interesting, but it's tasty. It's steady. Doesn't really like stand out against other Laphroaig offerings, but it's, you know, it's a stalwart. We call this probably like 7 out of 15. So that means we take 7 and 6 and 16 and 20 and 18 is 67. 67 under 100. This is just barely a great whiskey. Just barely. It's almost a good whiskey. 67 out of 100. Great.